I really was envious of you guys. I know y'all had a good time.
It was a good time.
It was.
It
Man.
was it was like mainlining the gospel.
Yeah, I don't think I have ever been around a group of people that are so laser focused on the gospel.
Yeah.
And I mean, where I go to church, the people are focused on the gospel. Don't get me wrong, but to be at a conference like that for 3 days, where that's just the focus over and over and over that you just hear it preached, and
Yeah,
every time something's talked about, it's gospel, man. It was awesome
that is
Hmm.
awesome.
for
I
sure.
went I went one time and I loved it. I really did, and it was my intention to keep going back every year, and I just hasn't worked out.
Okay,
But
to one
yeah,
of these epics.
yes,
Okay,
I went to one probably 3 or 4 years ago.
okay,
Honestly, maybe 5 years ago. It's been a minute, but yeah, it was
yeah.
wonderful. It was the one. I don't know, was Sam Storms there this time?
No,
Who were
Alan
the
Wright
guest
was there.
speakers? Okay. Um,
Yeah.
Alan Wright,
yeah,
Tom Hall, Kenny Thacker, um, and Chris. I never did get to know his last name. The lead pastor of Sojourn.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure what his last name was.
He really I I mean, I don't want to say a guy missed his calling, but the guy should have been a comedian.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, his sermon contained elements of comedy for sure.
really.
Oh yeah. Yeah, everybody
Uh,
has a different calling, and even when they introduced him, they said something about him being an easy laugh or something. They used the word laugh in his introduction, and yeah, he definitely's got the comedy down.
That's awesome. I think when
yeah,
I went, it was Sam Storms and Alan Wright. That's the first time I was introduced to Alan Wright. He was there, Sam Storms, and then Kenny, obviously Dudley, and then Chris and I think Tom Hall and Kenny. Yeah, Kenny, Tom Hall. Tom Hall spoke, I know, but I thought it was really neat the way they did it, and I'd like to know, did they do this like breakout in like workout sessions? Have a few
yeah.
of those where you could go to.
Yep.
Yeah, that was really
Hmm.
nice. I enjoyed that.
Yep. And then the hotel that we stayed at, there were a lot of the people from the conference staying there, and so we had the opportunity to visit with people like at breakfast in the morning and after the conference in
Oh,
the
that's
evening. So
wonderful.
it
That
was,
is
man.
really
The
cool.
one evening we sat there and we got to know these two couples that were from. Well, one was from Colorado, and I don't know, the other's from New Mexico, maybe. I'm not even for sure.
Yeah,
But yeah, we sat there for an hour and talked to them. Probably it's good stuff.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
It was a good, great time.
Yep.
I thought
Yeah.
so. Dudley kicked it off, and then he had a lecture in the middle about right, and then he landed the
Yeah.
plane Sunday morning,
Yeah. He
and
spoke 3 times, I think.
yeah, I thought he 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 stated a truth at the beginning that I think we all know, but I hadn't really thought of it this way for a while. But so that the theme of the weekend was captured, and he said, "Who are we captured by? Because we're always either under one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
We're not." So there was talk, there was a fair amount of talk about what freedom actually is.
hmm
How that true freedom is not necessarily be doing anything you want to do. What is it? Is it Brian uses that story about, if you were taken out in the middle of the ocean and dumped off the ship and said you're free, you can go anywhere you want to go. You're not really free.
Yeah,
Like
that's
you're
kind of a
probably gonna die.
scary version of freedom right there.
So true freedom
Man.
usually is making choices um based around a set of principles, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
How would you say that?
So the theme of the conference was capture, and every
Yeah.
message was gospel centered.
Very much so.
What was some of your highlights as far as I don't know, what was some of your highlights or takeaways? was like the if the main point was capture, that was the you know title of the conference. But in your minds individually, what was the main point, or what was your big takeaways?
Go ahead, Kent. I'll have a little something to say when you're finished.
So, in Dudley's talk, and I don't know, like I remember this, and I'm trying to remember how he fleshed this thing out. Myth number one was the church is to help us get to heaven. You know, with somehow I've thought for most of my life, I kind of would have agreed with that, I think. And so the truth is the Bible is about God bringing heaven to earth, bringing Jesus down to earth, and after he resurrected, the Holy Spirit is sent down to earth, and beginning, like, we are a part of the heavenly kingdom now.
Uh-huh.
Wow,
That
that's a
that was like a
mouthful
bit of a
right
mind
there.
shift. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it was. And I'll just interject this here, if I may, that I think it was Mr. Dudley made the comment that the gospel is more than the plan of salvation. That the plan of salvation is just a part of it. It's not just about getting saved and getting to heaven, like Kent was saying. It's about meeting Jesus and being captivated by his love, and then being compelled by that love to, well, once again, like Kent said, to live in the kingdom and to go out and do things and be active. And it's more than just getting saved and getting to heaven and getting out of here. I really
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. A plan, a plan is what we use to get people to heaven. I thought that was kind of an interesting thought.
Uh-huh.
A story is actually what changes lives. Yeah, is the gospel a plan or a story? And like you said, I think a plan is a part of it. Like there are mechanics to what happened, but it's really a story that changes lives. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, and I also appreciated, well, like I said earlier before we pushed the record button, uh, I appreciated how very laser focused everybody was on the gospel, and it was brought out several times about how all we need to do and all we're called to do is tell the story of Jesus. That's all. We're not supposed to add to it. We're not supposed to take away from it. We're not supposed to come up, I mean, like, with the 7 different steps to getting saved, or, try to build a plan out of it necessarily. Um, that was the whole thing, the 7 steps of getting saved. But, it's just you tell the story, and it's kind of hard for us humans to wrap our minds around this, but if you just tell the story of Jesus, there's tremendous power in the story. And I over the weekend, I came to believe that that was absolutely true. And it's so simple.
And that's awesome. So what
Dudley,
are you saying?
Dud,
Are you saying that this actually more the gospel is more than just something that is for the sweet by and by?
Oh, it's a lot more than for just that, Alex. A lot more.
Really?
That's just, oh yeah. What's your saying for the something
na-
here and now?
nasty now and
Nasty
now.
noun? Yeah.
Yeah. All I could think of was the nitty gritty now, here and now, but I knew that wasn't quite
Yeah.
right.
That's a band, Frank. Nitty Gritty, but they're a
Yeah,
band.
yeah. There you go.
Um,
And the
so
other
the
thing, I got to
seven
just throw this.
steps. You gonna tell
Go ahead.
that?
Tell us about the 7 steps.
So Dudley had this sermon. He said he was preaching when he was in his 20s, and he had this sermon based off of Naaman's dipping 7 times into the water. And he said it worked
Hmm.
really good. This is what's so hilarious. He's making fun of himself from back in
Of his own sermon.
of his own sermons back when he was in his 20s. Um, but yeah, and they were all good steps. This is what, as I was listening to him go through the steps, I thought, this is great steps.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Nothing wrong with it.
yeah, it was all based on this plan. You had to do this, and then you had to do this, and then you had to do this, and you didn't get
And
anywhere.
you weren't there at step 5 or
Yeah,
6.
you
It's that
weren't there till
final
that
step.
7th step.
Yep.
And then,
Then
boy,
you were
how do you,
there.
you
Then you were
finally
saved.
find. And he said, man, it would bring people to the altar. They would get people up there praying, and he believed people were probably saved through that. It just wasn't a great picture of the gospel.
Yep.
And then that story was used humorously through the rest of the conference. It was good.
Yeah, I guess something that impressed me was the difference between a topical sermon to where where a preacher says I need to preach about marriage, or I need to preach about giving, or I need to preach about whatever
Hmm.
topic he wants to preach about, and he goes to the Bible and he finds scripture to fit his topic. Whereas on the other hand, if you just tell the story of Jesus over and over and over, I mean, you can talk about marriage and you can talk about giving, but the gospel is always first. It's always the foundation. You don't go pick a topic and then make the gospel fit it. That there's a huge difference in those two things. One of the speakers in one of the breakout sessions was the leader of a church. He had been the youth pastor there, and it's too long of a story to tell, but it went from a normal American church that was very focused on membership and just getting numbers up and getting attendance up and all of that. They went from that to being very gospel focused. And he said that he had people come to him and tell about marriages being changed and restored when he did not think he had preached a sermon on marriage. Their giving was way up, and he said he was not preaching about giving. All he was doing was telling the gospel, and everything else was happening like it was supposed to happen, which is what the gospel does. It's
Right.
just that we
Right.
we make it so complicated,
Right.
and it's powerful in its simplicity. That was one of the main
Hmm.
things I took away from all of it.
Yeah, you realize the gospel doesn't get old. It just keeps, um, you keep, like you said, keep
Yeah.
telling the story, and it keeps having application to every area of your life. It's not like we got to tell a new story for this application or
Right.
that one. Just tell the same story, and it really does affect all of life. So that's good. That's
Yeah, it
awesome.
does. And what you said, Alex, is true, and I don't think we can understand why that story doesn't get old, because like I said, I kept hearing the gospel throughout this entire weekend, and sometimes it would sneak up on you, and all of a sudden you're like, bam, hit between the eyes. You're listening to somebody tell a story about something that had happened or something that they did, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, here I am hearing it again. And every time that happened, like, it just it's fresh, and it moves you.
Hmm.
It's good stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we weren't created for autonomy.
Right.
None of us really appreciate autonomy. We think we do, but really we don't. And we end up seeking something to serve. There was I didn't even know this song. There's a Bob Dylan song, "Gotta Serve Somebody." So I went and read the lyrics on that song. It's really interesting. Like
Mhm.
it's very interesting lyrics. Um, but we all choose to serve somebody. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we think it's possible for us to be free, completely free, but that probably not probably that can't happen, because like you said, we'll serve something.
Hmm.
There's a little phrase that I really really like, and I don't even know where I heard it. I don't even know the context of it, but it stuck with me, and I actually wrote it down in a book of like little phrases that like stick in my mind. But the phrase is "there is no middle kingdom," and I love that thought because I think so many of us
Mm.
think we can live inside of a middle kingdom. We can
Yeah.
live, and I'll just I don't know, just really is an impressive thought to me that
Like living in Switzerland where they're neutral.
yeah. But there isn't. We're in a spiritual war, and like the
Yep.
topic of your conference captured. I mean, there's no place where a person can dwell where there is not a you know you're either you're serving a master.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
choose wisely which master you're going to serve.
Exactly. Because one of them, if you serve him, you'll be in hell. And I'm not talking about just in eternity or after you die. It's hell all the time with him.
Right.
So one of the things that, and this is just kind of a side track here, but Mr. Wright, Alan Wright, had a breakout session on communication. I was just looking at my notes here. and he talked about well, he was talking about communication in our relationships, and his theme was kind of well, I think it was that verse about speaking the truth in love. And I appreciated one thing he said in that talk, and that was how grace. He was talking about grace and truth, and how you have to have both of those in a relationship and in a conversation, because he said grace makes a conversation safe and truth makes it meaningful. If you lose either one of those, if all you have is truth and you have no grace, you're going to hurt people and you'll be offensive. And if all you have is grace, there will be no meaning. I mean, there's no truth there, so obviously it's useless. And I really appreciated that. And he said Jesus. It says in one of those verses where Jesus was full of grace and truth. Like he was 100% of each of those things. And he said we need, that's where we're striving for. He said we're
Yeah,
not there. All of us have a leaning toward one or the other. Like we lean more toward the grace or toward the truth, but we need to keep that in mind with our relationships and how we communicate with our people around us, whether it's your spouse or your friends or whatever. There has to be grace and truth.
that's good.
That was good for me to hear.
Hmm. So which one do you have the biggest problem with, Frank?
I would have more grace, I think, because the reason I say that is because it's hard for me to tell somebody something that I know they don't want to hear. Um, it's pretty easy for me just to kind of go along to get along.
Yeah.
So I think that's where my weakness would be, is leaning too much on grace. Although there have been times in the past when I get it in my head that there's something is right, I can get pretty dogmatic about it.
Yeah. I think for myself, I would be in the same position, except for maybe it depends on who I'm talking with. I think sometimes,
Yeah,
um, maybe the ones that are closest to me, I need more grace. I use
yeah,
mostly truth instead of grace. So yeah,
yeah. And you know what? This is interesting now that we're talking about this, because there is something I've identified in my character before, and it has. I'm going to re-answer your question, Kent. I think I lean more toward grace until I hit a certain point, and then I'm finished with grace, and it's all truth, and you're fixing to hear it. Because I see that in myself. I see that in myself with relationships, and even in the way I work with things. I mean, I'll be very easy to get along with until you cross a certain line, and then it's over, and things are going to be brought all the way back to truth. There will be no mistake in any of it. That
hmm
and grace goes out the window. So man, that's really messed up.
Well, I was I was trying to think, okay, where am I at on this? I'm usually pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Like I don't beat around the bush, and I usually don't have a lot of animosity in it, you know?
Hmm.
I tend to say what I think
Right.
until um like I've got a conversation I probably need to have here in the next week or so. I don't want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
In fact, if I could walk away and never ever deal with this again, I think it'd be amazing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you call that grace necessarily. You might just call it being sorry. I don't know what it is. But you know, speaking the truth when it gets down to brass tacks for me is really, really hard.
Hmm.
So we're talking about communication, and I don't know if you guys have any more highlights or high points on the conference that you want to talk about, but
We can take
moving
any
into
rabbit trail you want to, man.
just moving into a topic of prayer. Does that dynamic or that conversation that you have internally, that dialogue of truth and grace, how does that play out? How do you talk to yourselves? Are you truth, you grace, when you're talking to yourself? And then how does that play out in a practical sense as we try to communicate, or endeavor to communicate to God?
Yeah, that's a I find is paradox the right word here in my head, that on the one hand I view myself by my best intentions, and
Right.
I'm kind of I'm kind of the hero in my story too much of the time. And yet there's that side where all I can see is everything I've screwed up, and
Mm-hmm.
like and both of those tend to play in here with this whole communication thing, I think.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I remember when it became real to me that we have a voice in our head. I don't know what you want to call it, self-talk or whatever. Well, we're talking to ourselves and telling ourselves what we think about ourselves and what we should have done and all of that. And I understand very well the paradox you're talking about of the judging by good intentions, but at the same time telling yourself how much you screwed up and how sorry you are. And that's a very real thing. And from what I have heard and read, that voice in your head is just as powerful. Your brain doesn't know the difference between that and like if you were telling me something as a friend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And so it becomes really important to carefully consider how you're thinking about yourself and how you're talking to yourself. And I think that if you learn to pray properly, which is where Alex is going with their conversation here, if you learn to pray properly, I'm suspicious. I'm not there, but I'm suspicious that that would really help with that perception of who you are because as you pray, like with honesty, you truly pray and you talk to God a lot about your thoughts and where you're at in life and where you want to go and where you've been, you know, the whole package. It seems like that doing that would get you would move closer and closer to real truth, which is Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
in your mind and in the way you
Mm-hmm.
think about yourself. You would know who you are and who he is and how that relationship is supposed to work. And to me, that seems like a beautiful dynamic.
So you said to pray properly. That sounds like some kind of systematic thing here.
Oh
What
goodness,
am I
I
supposed
done
to take
messed
away
up.
from this? Am
I
I
done
supposed
messed
to
up.
I
Mm.
if I could just say the right words, is that where you're headed?
The right formula, man. And you gotta speak in the King's English. These and thous and therefores and shouts and shout nots.
There you
Well,
go.
hey, maybe, maybe here's a question. Talk about praying properly. This is something that I'd love to know. This is an old dialogue that probably goes back as far as the Christian church does. But when you pray, and this might be kind of walks hand in hand with like the grace and truth. Um, but do you see yourself as a sinner or a saint? When you're talking to God, communicate with God, are you the sinner or are you the saint? I mean, I feel like for myself, back to the grace and truth, I feel like that's a and both dialogue that continually goes on in my own heart. Like I'll speak the truth to myself, but then I'm showing myself a lot of grace too, you know. So I think
Yeah.
obviously when I'm communicating to God, it's that sinner saint dialogue that, you know, kind of comes out of my heart too. I oftentimes do feel like I'm just grateful for being redeemed and knowing and trusting, believing that I'm a saint. But man, there's oftentimes I feel like I'm a dirty sinner, you know, communicating to God. So, how does that shape our view of God, and also how does that shape our communication to God, the sinner saint dynamic?
That's an interesting question, Alex, because in this epic conference that Kent and I were at, Alan Wright had a sermon where he made it very clear that we're slaves. And the Bible talks about us, you know, that we're a
Hmm.
slave to Christ. And then Chris, the pastor there at the church we were at, he got up and he preached very powerfully that we're sons. And I asked Kent, I'm like, well, what's up with this? Are we slaves or are we sons? You know, which one are
Yeah,
we?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
we were never told when you go from being the slave to being the son, or if that ever happens, it was a little bit left hanging there. But I guess here's the way I think about it. When you ask your question about saints or sinners, the answer is yes, because the only reason I'm a saint is because God looks at me through his son.
Hmm.
Then he sees a saint. And prior to him seeing me through his son, I was definitely a sinner. No doubt
Right,
about that.
right.
That's a really difficult thing for me to that's a really difficult thing for me to wrap my mind around because and can't kind of drill this home a little bit on this trip, but I like things black and white. I want
Hmm.
yes or no. I want it just to be either this way or that way, not no grayness at all. And
Yeah.
so it's hard for me to get here, but I'm beginning to believe more and more that in the scriptures And with our God, I mean, this God that we serve is not bound by our thought processes or by physics or by time. I mean, he is way outside of all of that. And so you can't say if this, then that. That
Right.
doesn't work with God. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a sinner and I'm a
Yes.
saint.
Yeah. So it's and both more is the better.
Well, it seems like it,
Yeah.
You're a
but I could
saint
be wrong.
you're a saint in a body that's still under the temptations of sin.
That's right. I don't identify as a sinner. I'll tell you that for sure.
Right.
I do still sin sometimes, but I do not identify as a sinner.
Hmm.
I think it's really important. That's a really important
Y-
distinction to make.
yeah. I understanding your place as a son and your freedom to go to the Father no matter what you've done, no matter where you're at,
Uh-huh.
knowing that he's not surprised because you did something stupid
Yep.
and that
Right.
he loves you because you're his son. Like
Mhm.
getting that through your head, I think is a really, really hard process because a lot of times that is what we see is how we've screwed it up so bad.
Yep.
So it kind of changes the story for us if we see ourselves as saints or as sons. I think I'm often impressed and fascinated by the children of Israel's experience with God. One of their first experiences with God in the desert after they crossed the Red Sea, they had obviously seen him do many wonderful things and had witnessed like a very manifest expression of, you know, him doing miracles and, all kind of things, deliverance, from the Egyptians. Um, and he's giving them the law where he tells Moses to gather them together, gathers the whole, body of Israelites together at Mount Sinai, and he appears in thunderings and lightnings and smoke and burns the mountain, and there's a lot of things that are happening, and really scares them out, scares the children of Israel to the point where they're like, Moses, you go up and talk to God, and we'll just do whatever God tells you. Um,
Mhm.
and I think about that sometimes for us today, like there's a part of me, I think, as a um that's not walking in the identity of a son or a saint that would like somebody to just go hear from God for me and then just tell me what to
Mm.
do. Give me the cliff notes instead of me actually relating to that God. That's kind of terrifying, especially when I look at myself and I see my sin and I experience the sin nature that I have. And then, like, well, man, he's holy and he's just and he's all these things, and
Yep.
so anyways, I just that's a it's an interesting story to me that I often think about, but it is convicting to me how many times even today, still as a son, as someone who has been walking with the Lord and has a relationship with him and hear from him, that I still oftentimes would just as soon let a brother, let somebody else, like, I'd rather get a word from the Lord from someone else and hear it directly from him oftentimes. Maybe I'm alone in that struggle.
No, I don't think you are. As you were speaking there, I was thinking about a conversation I had this weekend with somebody who was making some hard decisions, and I told them what I thought, and then I told them that they had to make their own decision because they had to live with the consequences. And
Mhm.
I think it's like that with God. I don't think we should ever outsource our relationship with God. I mean, I know we shouldn't because He's interested in us very, very intimately and personally. And while I believe there's great value in counselors and in me asking y'all what you think, at some point I have to, between God and I have to get to the point where I'm like, okay, this is honestly what I personally believe God is saying. I think He's leading this direction. And then I need to go walk in that direction because
Mhm.
that's really the only place I think where you can walk in peace. Because while what you said is true, Alex, that it's it kind of feels nice for somebody to tell us what to do. if we get down the road and it's not working very good, it's pretty easy to say, well, they just didn't know what they were talking about, and this ain't my fault. Whereas if I really believe this is what God is telling me to do, then you're walking in peace. You're like, okay, well, I thought this was right. Maybe I'm, and we're going to be wrong sometimes. I full well believe that. But when you're making your own decisions and you have that relationship with God, it seems to me like there's a peace in that you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah, it's good.
So, um, this makes me think of one of the breakout sessions. Tom Hall did a breakout on Bible study, and he made a comment here: read the scripture to commune with God, and that was like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. We read the scripture. We say the Holy Spirit speaks through the Bible. If He didn't speak through the Bible, we wouldn't um we wouldn't understand any of it. But what that for me, that's really hard to remember that. And even in prayer, I think it can be really hard for me to I'm kind of I'm praying to this thing, this being, this person, but it's harder to see it as a relationship. And I'm not just praying to this person. I'm actually
Hmm.
wanting to commune with this person.
That's right.
This is a person, and I want to, this is a relationship. I'm not just sitting here asking him for stuff. I'm wanting to be a part of him. I don't know.
Yeah.
That really enthuses me to think of prayer that way.
Well, prayer, yeah, prayer has to be a conversation, and even more than that, perhaps it has to be a relationship, and that's always two way.
Hmm.
But what about the times when you just don't hear anything, and it just seems like a one way conversation that
Yeah.
prayers bounce off the ceiling, and you just continue to pray for the sake of praying, or time to how do y'all wrestle through that, man?
So I've been going down that rabbit hole just a little bit today. Not I didn't have a lot of time, but um, Frank, you talked about this basically a system, I guess.
Okay.
And I picked earlier we I picked up on that because this is actually what I've been thinking about today. Um, so everything that I do that moves the needle forward. I wish I had a whiteboard here. I don't have one.
You're getting all
Um,
teachery on us.
man, well, this quadrant really enthuses me.
Oh yeah,
Frank, I talked to you about it. Um,
you did.
it's in the book First Things First by can't remember his name. Anyway, so you have this quadrant. You have urgent and important up here in the top corner. This is where we spend most of our time, taking care of urgent and important. Where we spend a lot of the rest of our time is in the urgent but not important. So, and then we waste time in the not urgent, not important, like whatever, doom scrolling, whatever you want to think. So, what moves the needle forward in your life long term? 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, what moves the needle forward? It's over there in the not urgent but important box. It says stuff you don't have to do. We would all say that Bible reading and prayer are important to our Christian life, but there ain't nothing urgent about it.
Yeah,
And
that's what we think.
well, there's no urgency in life really that yeah, I mean, reality might be a different thing, but
Yeah, but yeah, I know what you're
I
saying. By all means.
yeah, it's not a phone call with a work problem that I have to take care of right now.
Yep.
Um, everything that moves the needle forward takes work, takes me being really intentional. Um, so when I think of Bible reading and prayer, you know, we've all went from religion at some level, some of us more than others, maybe. I had a double dose of it. And the whole idea of working at anything is just like I I really run away from that.
Yeah.
Um, and yet I'm believing more and more that if I want to grow as a Christian, if I want to become stronger, that that path isn't it doesn't include me trying to stamp out every sin. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I've tried to do that all my life and I haven't got it stamped out yet. It actually takes me becoming a different person. It takes me growing into something else. Um, I don't know. I don't know if that clearly brings my thought out, but yeah, I believe today that prayer and Bible reading are absolutely essential. And I believe that I've wandered off kind of into the ditch of I do it when I'm inspired,
Hmm.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I was wondering, Alex, when you were talking about about well, I'll say when our prayers seem to bounce off the ceiling. I wonder if we're praying wrong because well, here we go again. Can't There's got to be a right way to pray? But it says in the Bible that you don't receive because you ask amiss. And sometimes I
Hmm.
wonder, like I can get into this thing of I'm really focused on something that I need or that I want or a situation that I believe really needs to change. And you can go to praying and praying and praying, and nothing's changing. And I'm wondering if instead of doing that, if maybe we should start worshiping God. Maybe our prayers need to be completely changed away from this thing that I'm begging God for, and I need to start praising Him and adoring Him, and maybe things would change then. I don't know because I'm not very good at doing that. At I'm pretty good at telling God what He ought to be doing. Sure am.
Yeah,
Well,
like I've been reading a little in Alan Wright's book, this Pray in the Spirit. First chapter.
Mhm.
He's man, I think I want to read this. Well, I'll just tell a little bit. So, um every child understands this principle that requests based on promises are always more powerful, right? So
Okay.
a child asks his dad in the morning, "Can we have ice cream this afternoon?"
Mhm.
Um, and the dad says, "Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when we get there." But if the dad that morning has said, "We're going to town to get ice cream," and he forgets, and that
Mm.
child comes to him that afternoon, "I want ice cream. I would like ice cream. You promised ice cream." He
Time to
comes
go back to
with
town.
he comes with the knowledge that this is promised.
Yeah.
hmm
So and so I prayed that today. I actually prayed the Lord's Prayer today, kind of paraphrased. But just saying those words, Lord, you're my shepherd. I don't
Yeah.
want for anything. You
Mhm.
you placed me in a very high place that my enemies can't
Yeah.
touch me. Like you start praying
Yeah.
truth, it changes how you feel.
hmm
Mhm. Yeah, and what you just said, Kent, you were not asking God to do those things. You were telling God that He already had done them because
Yeah,
because He has told you that He has. You were
yeah,
reaffirming
that's right.
God's promises, I think is what you were doing.
I
That's
wasn't holding
interesting.
God to anything. I was just really reminding myself of what He's promised me.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
I cut you off,
that's
Alex. I
good.
apologize.
No, no, that's good. That's really good. And I think back to your thought, Frank, on praying amiss, it made me think of my weekend, at the men's retreat, and the theme for the
Yeah.
weekend was steadfast, and it was out of James, and he talks about the testing of your faith. So it's James 1, 2, all the way through, I think, like 24, something like that, about being a double-minded man, being steadfast in trials and all that. But one thing that really impressed me was about, what trials are supposed to do in our life. So I think some of those moments when we feel like our prayers are bouncing off of the ceiling, um, that might be a moment of walking through trials, walking through temptation, walking through times where instead of just wanting to get out from underneath it, maybe we need to endure, be steadfast, walk through that. I was read in one of my Puritan paperback books the other day. It had something about suffering, and it was talking about that, incense until it's burned usually doesn't put off a lot of odor. It's when you burn the incense that the aroma rises, or that a lot of herbs, a lot of things, take a crushing before the smell comes out of it, the
Mm-hmm.
aroma. So so I think too, instead of trying to run from that in my life, I've been very convicted. Instead of, like, God, I need an answer, I need it right now, and getting desperate for that. Like, maybe I just need to
Right.
be steadfast and faithful walking through that, there's value in that too, I think. But I love what you said, Ken, about um the way it made you feel. Like, it didn't change God's mind on anything. It just brought you into alignment with what truth was,
Yes.
Hmm.
what the ultimate truth was, So I
That's
love
right.
that.
Hmm.
And we
It's
so
enthusiasm.
often and so easily move away from that and begin believing the lies that this voice in our head keeps telling us.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Jesus prayed. So some of the stuff I was listening to today talked about praying and fasting. And Alex, I know you've probably fasted more than I know you have more than I have. Um,
Right. Me too.
practice that more. But that's an interesting. Like, I usually feel when I read about how much Jesus fasted and prayed, I just feel guilty. Like, I'm not sure that's what it was put in there for, was to make me feel guilty. Um, but again, that's talking about um, if we want to grow, we're probably going to have to do things that aren't always the easiest.
Yeah.
So how do I think about that? Like, how do I read that? I'm curious, Alex. You you like I said, you've done this some, I know.
Well, one of the most convicting things to me about fasting is Jesus doesn't um he doesn't give it he doesn't give it as a suggestion. He says when you
Mm-hmm.
do it. He doesn't say if you do it. He says when you do it.
Right.
So there's an expectation that his people will fast. So I think that's been super convicting to me to think about that. But I think there is a right and a wrong way of fasting. Fasting is not to get God to do something for you. I think fasting is um a way of basically, you've probably heard me talk about. So years ago I read a book. I don't even know the name of the book, but it's by Watchman Nee, where he goes into kind of a deep dive of body, soul, and spirit. And and the big takeaway for me in that book was that my spirit, the part of me that will never die, my soul and my body will die, will be will
Right.
be forever gone. But my spirit will live. Everyone's spirit is eternal. It's the spirit is an eternal thing. It lives forever. So who's in control? Is your mind or your soul, your emotions, will, mind, and emotions, or your physical body in control of your spirit, or is your spirit in control of your, like, who's in control? You know, kind of like the theme of your conference, captured. Who's in control. So I think that's one thing that when I fast, I try to do it, just, because it's hard. You just tell God, I love you more than I love food. And I'm going to, just keep reminding your body that your spirit's in control of your body. And that's the primary reason for discipline of my body that I do it. And I've been convicted. I need to get back into it. I need to do it on more of a regular basis. However, I have found that when those thoughts creep into my mind about, oh man, look at me, I'm fasting, I'm doing all this, then I have to shut it down. I haven't fasted for a good while now. And part of it was why I was so successful every day of the week, every Monday for like almost a year, I fasted. And it got to a point where I was thinking more highly of myself for being able to go so long fasting. I'm like, I got to stop.
Yeah,
This isn't what it's about, you know? So, um,
that's interesting.
Hmm.
yeah, it's,
It became something to
you
you
can't get.
that it shouldn't be.
Exactly. You cannot get it twisted. You can't get the reasons wrong, you know,
Yeah,
and it's very easy to do.
for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. But anything good that you do can that can happen. Um, any good thing can become a bad thing, right? Like,
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that this afternoon. I was very impressed with Alan's talk on being slaves. You know that, Kent. I've brought it up a number of times. He gave a talk there that, from my perspective, was excellent. Like his ability to speak and use words to describe situations and scenes and make you see them is really, I mean, he's a very talented speaker. And I was thinking about that this afternoon, that thing right there could so quickly become it, he could get his ego all wrapped up in that thing. And one of the reasons I was thinking about it is because he gave that speech, excuse me, he gave that speech, and it was our sermon or whatever, and it was, to me, it was awesome. It was great. But then he gave, the next day he did the breakout section, the breakout, what's it called? Breakout session. Yeah, get my words right here. And it was nothing anywhere close to as inspirational and powerful as that sermon. And I was like, oh, so he's not, I mean, he doesn't always have that same whatever it was. And I was like, and then today I was going back and I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, that's probably really good, because if he was always on that level, it seems like you could really get your ego wrapped up in it and thinking you're quite something.
I really hate it. I missed half of that, but I do. I remember part of what you said there.
Yeah.
He was an amazingly talented speaker.
Yeah, he is.
The his book, The Power to Bless, um deeply impacted my life, and to this day I go and tuck my little boy in bed every night and pray over him. Just I want that young man to grow up, you know, um knowing how much I love him and just, you know, blessing him. I try to bless my kids as often as I can. Fail
Yeah.
oftentimes, but I really
That's
was
awesome.
impacted by that conference that I went to where I heard him speak and then was introduced to that book.
Yeah, it can be really easy to focus in on everything you want to fix, the problems, and learning to look for the things you can bless them in, and
Mhm.
even just positive stuff to talk to them about. Like
Yeah.
we have this slide in our morning meeting at work. It's called Raving Fans, but it's a time for everybody to say something good about somebody. And that I was amazed at how hard that was for the first few weeks.
Yeah.
Like
So
our mind
you're
tends to see everything that's wrong.
yeah.
Mhm.
So in your meeting, you're all sitting around there, and like you would just say something good about your secretary or the guy that runs the plane or whatever. Just one
Yeah.
random good thing about him.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and sometimes it's one or two people, sometimes it's, quite a few. But
Yeah.
yeah, just different people take that time to say something nice about somebody else.
Yeah. Well, one of the things also in this conference we were at that was talked about was the power of our words. And I don't think I really understand that yet, how powerful what we say really is. But when you go back and you look at creation, everything was created with a spoken word. And that
Mhm.
was Jesus. I mean, I'm not saying we have that power, but the older I get, the more I'm beginning to get really suspicious that there's a tremendous amount of power in the things that we say. Just like you were talking about, Alex, for your son to hear you pray over him and bless him, and for him to know that you love God and you love him and you want the best for him. I mean, that has got to be tremendously powerful in his life.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, I can't help but think that it has to be. I don't
It's a
see any
little
other
easier
way.
to
Hmm.
do that for my 8-year-old son than it is my 15-year-old daughter right now. I'll be honest with you,
Right.
you know. But I
That's
should do it for
understandable.
all of them. I should do that over my wife. I should do that over my children, all of my children,
Yeah.
you know. So, um, but yeah, you're right. There's something supernatural about words.
Yep.
I'm convinced of that. It
Yeah,
really is.
I want to understand that better. It's very intriguing to me.
And I think especially and I think even like, you know, in the words that we say to God, I think, you know, the silent prayer is okay, and that internal communication with God is okay. I think that there's something really powerful about the expressed prayer, like the verbally, you know, audible expressed prayer, because for one, the demons can hear it. They don't know your thoughts. They don't know your mind. The quiet prayer, and there's sometimes when you don't want to pray out loud because you don't want the demons to know what you're praying. You don't want them to know what you're saying to God. But there's times when you need to say it out loud so they hear. They are that so that they're on
Yeah.
notice. You know.
Yeah, that's something we're to the end of our time here really, but that's something that I would love to talk about at length. But because it says in the Bible that those who worship God must worship him in spirit and in truth because God is a spirit. And so there's a part of me that wants to think, and I don't believe this is right, but I want to think that silent prayer is just as powerful as audible prayer. But I've experienced it otherwise, Alex. I've just like you said, I have found that when I am willing, and I don't know why, it takes a humbling of myself to pray out loud when I'm all by myself and there's
Uh-huh.
nobody around. It still takes a humbling of myself, and I'm like, why? Why do I have to humble myself to pray out loud when
Hmm.
there's nobody around? I mean, who? I guess I'm humbling myself in front of myself. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. That's dumb. But it's true. But here's my point. Sorry, it takes me a while to get to my point. My point is this: when I do it, it's good. It seems more powerful than when you just think the thoughts in your head.
Yeah, and
I'm done there.
the next level from that is praying in tongues out loud when you're by yourself, and
Yes.
that's another I don't do it often, um, but that is definitely something when I have done it. There is something supernatural about that as well. I can't explain it. There's some unexplainable things about the spirit and the spirit world that I don't know that we're necessarily meant to understand, but there's something that happens. I'm quite sure of.
Well, the cool
I'm
thing
just
is,
sit.
we're talking about a lot of stuff and we don't have a lot of answers. That's really cool, actually, because that means we've got a lot of talking to do and we got a lot of exploring that we can do. So we're not going to run out of things to talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, go ahead, Kent. I cut you off.
That's you think about the difference in blessing. I just keep thinking about this. Like we want our brothers and sisters to pray for us if we're going through a
Yeah,
struggle. We want them to say, Lord, help them. But
yeah,
think about what it feels like when you're being prayed for and the person praying is saying, God, we're so thankful for this mighty man of God, and
hmm
we are thankful that you are going to use him to grow your kingdom. Like,
and you're looking around trying to see who they're talking about.
yeah, who is this guy? But anyway, the the power that's in a prayer like that. Like, what
Yeah,
if you prayed that over your wife, if
Hmm.
over your kids? That might be what you do, Alex. I'm not sure. Like, more a you're not speaking things into existence. I don't believe in manifesting and that sort of thing. But Um, I do believe that words have power, just like you're saying.
Yep. Yeah, they do.
I know what they do in my own heart when I'm prayed for in that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
They
Makes a
give
Yeah.
vision.
difference.
They give hope. Back to that verse I think we've talked about before, without vision, people perish.
Yeah.
I just, I'm realizing more and more how incredibly true that is.
Hmm.
When you have a vision, when you see where you could be, you have somewhere to go.
Yep.
Otherwise,
And then
you
I
just see
think
it.
another level of that is if you have a vision and you're willing to tell people what your vision is, then you've said it out loud. Then they know where you're trying to go.
That's
And
scary.
it is scary, and it takes a humility because when you do that, for me at least, it makes me feel very vulnerable. Because then if I don't get there or don't go in that direction, I've said it. I said this is what I want to do, or this is where I'm going, or trying to
Hmm.
go. But I'm also convinced that when we do that, there are good people who help us along, because then they know what we want, where we're going, what would help.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So here, let me lay out what I want here to you guys, and then I'm just kidding.
Speak on.
Yeah, y'all kind of know all that already, but yeah, but you do need to have people that can yeah, remind you, because we lose our own way oftentimes, and so it's
Yeah.
good to have that reminder that, hey, you said this, this is the direction you're headed in, so don't get lost on the way here, so it's good.
Mhm.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think there's probably going to be food on my table in a few minutes. So
Yeah. You don't want to get in cold.
now,
Better
not
go
really.
get it. Well, guys, good to hear a report from the conference, and
Yeah.
super glad y'all was able to go. Maybe next year I can go along with y'all if y'all go again. But
I hope
it
so.
was
I definitely want to go.
yeah, we enjoyed evening with you guys. Enjoyed the conversation. Y'all have a good rest of the
Yep.
week.
Yeah.
Y'all have a good
You
night.
too.
All right,
See
see
y'all.
ya.
Offense to grace, how sweet the sound. The blood alone redeems. It frees the slaves and calls them sons. Fulfills the law's demands. Oh, yeah. Offense of grace. How sweet the sound that tore the veil away. It shatters all the old constraints, reveals a brand new day. I once believed I had to earn to keep you satisfied, but grace declared the work was done, the blood alone applied. Offense to grace, how sweet the sound. The blood alone redeems. It frees the slaves and calls them sons. Fulfills the law's demands. Oh, yeah. Offense to grace will wreck your world. Relentless and untamed. It settles all your demands. Leaves no debt to pay. From tables flipped in temple courts to the Pharisees' dismay, this grace offends self-assured and shakes the stronghold's core. It's grace that breaks religion's chains, forgives the penitent, it lifts the broken from the dust, exalts the